We already know owning gold and silver has been one of the wisest decisions for thousands of years, dating back to ancient civilizations such as the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. Often, the allocation of silver and gold is default to the size of your budget and your belief in which metal is quote unquote better. In this video, I want to challenge you to frame your stacking in the context of a precious metals portfolio comprised of gold, silver, but also platinum and mining stocks, which you are going to optimize to fit your specific goals. Your allocation optimization is about finding that perfect balance between a variety of what can be competing interests that go beyond the simple risk and reward teeter-totters that we're used to. Specifically, this must include identifying if you're more of an investor or a speculator, the type of returns you seek, the strength of your resolve, and your ability to handle the impact of volatility on you psychologically and financially. In some ways, this video is a part 2 of the previous video. The challenge for us stackers is that we guess 90+% of financial advisors, planners, and pundits almost completely ignore precious metals as an asset class, essentially making us financial orphans. Somehow we continue to survive the financial system, like the story of Jamal in the film Slumdog Millionaires, and now we have this incredible opportunity to take what we know and have learned and turn it into one of our greatest financial opportunities. One of the most asked questions I get is, what should my mix of gold and silver be considering X, Y, and Z? And those are hard questions to answer because it depends on a number of variables. So I spent a week in the lab researching, experimenting, mixing formulas and figures and numbers, surviving experiments gone wrong, and many explosions to give you Stackers University's precious metal allocation rubric shown here on the screen. Building off the last video, instead of risk and reward, I want you to view your portfolio broadly as a balance between your approach based on the type of stacker you are and performance based on your desire for beta or alpha returns. This distinction will help you determine your risk level as opposed to the other way around. Under the umbrella of approach, you need to decide whether you're an investor or a speculator. Let me be clear. I believe we're all investors, but in the context of this rubric, an investor focuses on the probability, seeking reasonable returns relative to risk, while speculators focus on possibilities, seeking outside returns with the associated risk. Now, let's talk about performance in the context of alpha and beta. In a nutshell, beta investors seek returns that match or slightly exceed the broader market or benchmark. For example, choosing a sector like commodities to outperform the S&P 500 over the next 5 years. In comparison, alpha investors seek investments that achieve higher returns than the market or the benchmark. For example, choosing certain stocks to outperform the commodities sector or the S&P. Alpha investors look to earn higher returns that can be generated beyond what the broader market provides by identifying investments that are undervalued and overlooked by the market. That sounds like silver to me, but we'll come back to that. With the table said, take a look at this rubric and use the information to review the risk rubric to get a sense of the risk associated with your approach and performance goals. Please note that this isn't a true assessment of your risk tolerance. In some ways, that's a different conversation because your risk tolerance is a theoretical conversation about the context of specific performance goals. Plus, risk is meant to be managed, not avoided. I personally believe it's more important to understand the risk associated with your approach and your goals and then adjust your risk within that context. Take a moment and pause and really think about where you think you fall based on your approach and performance, because from here, we start to construct what a precious metals only portfolio may look like. Next, we structurally have the same chart, except for it highlights what metals most closely align with your approach, performance goals, and the risk. I've also included a general percentage range. Remember, broadly speaking, if you're more on the investor side, you're looking at buying gold and silver. And if you want to increase your risk or opportunity for greater returns, then you weight your stack more towards silver and vice versa. If you want to speculate more, you increase your silver allocation or you introduce platinum. Remember, this is about how you're positioning your portfolio, not as a speculator or an investor overall. This is about your portfolio. We have to remember everything is fluid, and depending on the conditions and potential opportunities, your allotment, your allocation should change. Ultimately, you need to view this rubric as a framework to get you started. As an analogy, think of this as buying a house that has a already predetermined floor plan, but you get to tweak it to your liking. You can decide on the countertops, the carpet, the tile, the window covers, etc. All jokes aside, I want you to pause for a moment and really think about this and take inventory. What resonates with you? Does this make sense for your investment approach? Where are you currently? Are you comfortable with it? Or where do you want to be? It's important because the next rubric introduces equities for those that are interested in mining stocks. Okay, let's take a deep breath, relax, and don't overreact when I show you this table next. While you pause, I want to invite you to join us on Discord this Saturday at 9 a.m. or noon on the East Coast for a follow-up to this video and a general question and answer session with me, Dr. Stacker. So if you have questions you want answered, come and join us this Saturday. The link will be in the description. Also, feel free to hit that like button or subscribe button now. And then just quick shout out to my buddy Jackson. He found this $50 silver bar, reached out to me and said, hey Doc, you want this? And I said, you know I do. So thank you, brother, for the hookup. I appreciate it. Anybody find a $20 one, holler at me and I'll buy it from you. Okay, on to the next rubric. First things first, this is the exact same table structure and color scheme you've seen before, so take comfort in that. What I tried to do here is provide a starting point for those of you that are interested in physical metals but want some exposure to equities as well. All of the concepts we covered remain the same. The only thing was we added a new little twist. So let's start with an investor that is seeking alpha returns. That's the top left quadrant. Here, the person would have the same mix of silver and platinum, just like the all physical metals rubric, but now there's a 10% allocation towards junior mining stocks, most likely developers, for those that want to get some above average returns, but trying to keep the risks to the lower side, along with a 5% allocation to target specific mining stocks. If you want to incorporate equities, I encourage you to pause here and give it some thought. Look over the table, look at the allocation and see what resonates with you. Right now, we're going to go back to the all metals rubric to just drive home a few points. 1, it's time to stop just buying without having a plan and having goals. 2, the rubric. As an educator, of course, I love the idea of a rubric. And while they are helpful overall, they need to be used with caution and as a starting point, not a rigid framework. Your rubric and your approach needs to shift depending on the market. For example, becoming more conservative with your allocation if you're in a bear market, but it all has to be adjusted, so it's got to fit you. 3, we all are investing in metals, at least from my vantage point. So regardless of where you find yourself in that rubric, being on the investor or the specular side, don't worry about that label. Focus on the approach. Are you betting on probabilities or possibilities? For me, that either pushes you toward more traditional monetary metals like gold and silver. If you want more of a possibility to outperform the market, then you might lean more towards silver and include some of the platinum metal groups. 4, BYO, not B, but I. It's not bring your own bottle, it's be your own investor and own your own results. Again, this is just a starting point to get you going, and it will not apply to 100% of you, and that wasn't the goal. The goal was to provide something that works for a majority of you, a broad framework that can then just be tweaked and adjusted depending on you. One size does not fit all. 5, multiple quadrants. While the goal was to create some clean quadrants, the reality is that you might be primarily an alpha investor, but also be in the beta investor category as well. We are all individuals, and it's dicey to place yourself in a box, so don't feel confined. Use this to help you get started and figure out what works for you. 6, right-sizing your portfolio is about breaking the habit of buying metals just simply because that's what you do. You've heard me say this before. We cannot confuse activity with accomplishment. Adjusting your metals portfolio is about aligning your stack with your philosophy, your goals in the context of managing risk in order to reach your overall goals and maximizing your returns. In the comment section, feel free to share your thoughts about the rubric I developed. I promise I won't be defensive. Does the rubric help you start to think about your stacking approach differently? Are you in an all metals rubric, or do you think you're in the mixed rubric? Or give yourself an A+ in the comments /grade book, because after this, you are absolutely definitely an A+ student. Don't forget to join us this Saturday on the Discord. Always stack smarter, never stop learning.